Fancy seeing you here. I'm your host, Allie Ray, a serial entrepreneur and mom who loves building brands and raising babies. This is a podcast about being on brand and in season in every facet of your life. Each week, we dive into topics around business and brand development while sprinkling some hard-earned life lessons in there too. So if you love a good brand and a good breakdown, buckle up and come along with me as I sort of seamlessly switch between major life roles in an attempt to fulfill all the life dreams of a Type A Enneagram 3 millennial small business owner who wants to help other entrepreneurs and raise good humans. This is the Allie Ray Haney Show. Hello and welcome back to the Allie Ray Haney Show. This is the first episode of season 3 and I'm so excited to jump in. If you are new here, hello and welcome. I am Allie Ray and this podcast is all about branding and marketing and business. So today, the topic of our podcast episode is the book titled Buyback Rate by Dan Martell. Back in another phase of my business, I did blog posts all about different business books that I read, and I did reviews on them as well as kind of gave a very high level overview. Of course, I don't want to divulge all of the information because I want you to go out and buy the book, but that was sort of my way of holding myself accountable to actually finishing the books that I started. And I found that a lot of people love that. And now that I have the podcast, it is sometimes a little bit easier to listen to those reviews and those overviews rather than sitting down and reading a full blog post about them. So this newest season of Allie Ray Haney with the podcast, the Allie Ray Haney Show, that's what I'm doing. I am going through and doing a book review on Buyback Rate. Buyback Rate is a book that is about, it like brought up a lot of like really deep things for me. So, but generally it's about hiring and knowing when to hire, how to hire. And the reason that I started reading it was because I have an awesome relationship with this woman named Madeline. She is the owner of the Succeeding Small Agency, which is a marketing agency. She does SEO and paid ads. And she was so grateful to kind of give me the opportunity to pick her brain. And she gave me a couple of book recommendations during that phone call. And one of those book recommendations was Buyback Rate. So I immediately went and bought the book and started reading it and diving into it because I was at the point in my business when I was just trying to decide, do I want to start an agency, a marketing and branding agency, or do I want to stay on this solopreneur path? And quite honestly, I'm still at that transitional decision-making point of, do I want to grow? And if so, how big? Or do I want to stay where I'm at right now? But all of that to say, this book was a wealth of knowledge when it came to figuring out what I want to do, how I want to do it, and when I want to do it. So without further ado, let's jump into some of the main topics that Dan discusses in his book. One of the first quotes that stood out to me was 5% of everything you're doing is driving 95% of your company's returns. I'm going to say that one more time. 5% of everything you're doing is driving 95% of your company's returns. And I've sort of heard like the 80-20 rule of like 20% of the stuff that you're doing is driving 80% of the results. But 95-5, that is a like staggering statistic. I don't even know how to wrap my brain around it. Like, what am I even doing for that 5% of the time? And that's the point of this book. That's the point of the first major concept that he introduces, which is what he calls the drip matrix. And I want you to imagine sort of like old school algebra class where you have the X and Y axis, but instead of X and Y, we have a spectrum of the things we like to do versus the things we don't like to do. And then on the other axis, we have things that bring us money and things that don't bring us money. And that's essentially what that sort of matrix looks like. So in DRIP is an acronym. In one quadrant, we have the delegation quadrant. And those delegation tasks are tasks that make us very little money. And we also hate doing them. So it's the quadrant that we want to spend the least time in, if any time at all. The second one is the replacement quadrant. So those tasks do indeed make you money, but you hate doing them. They don't bring you any joy. Third is the investment quadrant, and that makes you little money, but you enjoy doing it. Finally, you have the production quadrant, which is where you want to spend the vast majority of your time, if possible. And in that quadrant, you are focusing on not only things that make you money, but things that you actually enjoy. And as an entrepreneur, we often get stuck in the delegation quadrants because we feel like we're the only ones that can do everything, rather than putting ourselves in the place that we really want to be, which is the production quadrant where we're making money and enjoying every minute of it. But every tactic that Dan gives in his book is to pull entrepreneurs out of that delegation quadrant and further into the production quadrant, because one of his direct quotes from the book says that successful people aren't doing what they love because they are rich. Instead, they are rich because they've learned to do what they love and only what they love. Throughout the book, he gives multiple like celebrity examples, Richard Branson, Oprah Winfrey, and how basically first of all, what their like ideal day looks like, which is mind blowing to me because I'm not even close to being on that level yet. But a girl can dream. But it kind of he gives you a roadmap of basically how to get there and make it align with your life and business, which is really cool. As entrepreneurs, I think it's very common to have those big goals, to have those big dreams. And he even talks about that dream and how to push past like just manifesting it, but making it really like come alive. He mentions that in the book too, but I digress. But this book is just an overall great resource to propel you towards those big goals that you have in your life and in your business. And I actually want to take a second to tell you about one of my other favorite goal planning tools, which is Power Sheets. Have you guys seen the meme that says, "Were you a pleasure to have in class, or were you really the type A oldest daughter with an undiagnosed anxiety disorder?" Well, that's me. But the words in that statement I really like to focus on are pleasure and type A. And one thing that brings me pleasure as a type A woman is goal planning and achieving. Since 2017, I've been using this incredible goal planner called Power Sheets, made by a company called Cultivate What Matters. It's a completely comprehensive, standalone resource that walks you through the prep work to identify which areas of your life you want to focus on for the year. I use this goal planner for both my personal and professional goals. And my favorite part is that it walks you through how to break down those big goals into small actionable steps to execute throughout the year. A few goals I've achieved by using this planner are sending annual birthday cards to my friends, creating a schedule to meal plan and purchase groceries, and going through an entire service offering pivot within my business. So if you're looking to become more goal-focused and task-minded, Power Sheets are a great tool to get you there. Head to the Cultivate What Matters website at cultivatewhatmatters.com and use code Allie Ray Haney for 10% off at checkout. All right, now back to the episode. Okay, welcome back. So right after he goes through the drip matrix and it essentially explains the different quadrants where we tend to spend our time and where we should be spending our time, he then talks about how to buy back your time. Imagine that. That's the title of the book, right? And it's basically the buyback principle is that you have to know your buyback rate, and that's how you know when you are able to hire someone. He gives a literal formula so that you can know exactly how much you can afford to pay someone to do those tasks specifically in the delegation quadrant to start, because that's the first place that you don't want to be. That's the tasks that don't make you money. They're still necessary. They don't make you money and they don't bring you joy. So like I said, I don't want to give away every single detail of his book because I really want to encourage you to go out and purchase it. But there is a literal, like specific formula to know how much you can pay someone based off of what you are currently making now. The second, or I guess third rather, big concept is the time and energy audit. And this has been so hard for me, and I'm not totally sure why. That's probably something that I need to dive in deeper to. But the time and energy audit is essentially tracking your time for every 15-minute segment of the day for 2 whole weeks. That sounds, I guess, just daunting to me, and that like within any given 15-minute segment of time, I'm doing things for my personal life for any one of the 3 businesses I run and contribute to. And it just was like, I don't even know if 15 minutes is enough. Like maybe I have to split it into 5-minute segments. But regardless, essentially what the point of that time and energy audit is that you want to determine which tasks are making you money and which tasks are not making you money. So remember that like X and Y axis concept. And then you also want to determine which tasks bring you joy and which tasks don't bring you joy. So at the end of that time and energy audit, at the end of that 2 weeks, you have your entire 2 weeks worth of tasks, both personal and professional, sorted into those 4 quadrants of delegation, replacement, investment, and production. And that way, you know exactly where to start when you go to hire, because you're going to be hiring within that delegation quadrant first. He literally walks you through like how to hire and who to hire and when. And one of the things that he encourages is that an assistant should always be your first hire. And the assistant has 2 very specific tasks that he or she is responsible for. And those 2 tasks are inbox management, so your email, and your calendar. I'm at a growth point in my business where I know I'm going to have to hire soon, but it's really hard for me to justify spending money. But I know you have to spend money in order to make more money. And for me, it just was like having someone manage my inbox and my calendar felt so, for lack of a more eloquent word, bougie. Like, gosh, that's such a simple task to, respond to emails. It's such a simple task to make sure that my, call calendar is set up correctly and that I don't have meetings overlapping. I don't need someone else to take care of that for me. But it's one of those delegation tasks that's so easy to get bogged down by, that once he explained why that is such an easy task to turn over to someone else, as long as you have the systems in place, which I'll get to in a second, that it's not, it will only propel you towards that production quadrant. I want to tell like a personal story about previously hiring an intern for my social media. I hired her for specifically social media content. I really wanted her to be the person who did my Instagram, my Facebook, my Pinterest, and potentially like writing blogs for me. But the way that I did my content creation, I realized after I had hired her, was that the blogs I was really having trouble like letting go of, because that is my, what I call pillar piece of content. My blog is where all content hits first, and then from there I kind of break it down and split it up in order to disseminate it across all of the social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, etc. That has since changed so that now the podcast is the place that the information first hits, and then the blog, then my email marketing list, then my social media, and it trickles on from there. But I thought that I had so many, procedures and like SOPs that I could very quickly hand off to her. But that ended up being like a real wake up call for me, that my systems weren't quite in place that as well as I thought I was. And for me, it really comes down to control. I think I'm coming to the realization that I might be a micromanager, but I'm a micromanager because I don't have those standard operating procedures in place that I can seamlessly hand off to someone else. So I don't know exactly how I would perform the task. That those procedures are just directly in my head, and therefore I can't confidently hand off the task and know it's going to be performed the way that I want it to be without that. And that was just like a really humbling realization that I came to during that hiring process. but also it brought this book, Buy Back Your Time, brought it back to the forefront of my mind. So all that to say, one, standard operating procedures are very important. And two, there is sometimes a misconception that you can bring someone on, and when you bring them on, you're only hiring them for one role. And when I was going through that, I was ultimately realizing that I wasn't needing only help with social media. I was needing help with the systems themselves. And imagine that Dan had anticipated that that's probably why many people struggle to hire. And he actually provides a solution for that baked directly into his book. He gives recommendations on how to start recording your SOPs. And then I've actually since started to try to do that whenever I'm performing another task in my business. And I realize that makes me realize that I do, in fact, have some structure to my tasks, but it also makes me realize where I need to button up my systems even more. And real quick, before we continue to move on, I want to take a break so that I can tell you about one piece of software that's actually helped me to simplify and automate all of my client-facing systems, which is my CRM, 17 Hats. I absolutely love systems in both my business and my personal life. Since the beginning of my business 6 years ago, I've been using this client relationship manager, or CRM for short, called 17 Hats. 17 Hats has been crucial for my business's organization because I can do everything in one place. That means all my proposals, contracts, invoices, and questionnaires are there. I can onboard a client without ever touching a button because my workflows are automated. I can schedule client calls and sessions through the online scheduler, and it even connects to my bank to import my transactions so that I can categorize my expenses and quickly run a P&L to see my numbers anytime I want. So if you're in the market for a CRM, check out 17 Hats. Go to www.allierayhaney.com/17hats for 50% off your first year. Again, that's allierayhaney.com/17hats. So one of the most intimidating things about hiring for me was that I didn't want to mess up the whole process. I didn't want to hire and onboard a person just to have it not work out and then take yet another blow to the productivity that I needed to have to start the whole process over again. But lo and behold, Dan also gives a framework on exactly how to do that as well. And I love that he gave specific pointers on how to weed out uncommitted candidates. And now looking back on other peers that I know have hired recently, it's really interesting to me to be able to see his process in other people's hiring processes. Like I can tell who's read the book based off of how they hire their people. Because one of the specific things that he gave to encourage weeding out the uncommitted candidates was to have them record a video. And this video doesn't have to be like in depth by any means. It's essentially just an introduction to the person that is applying for the job, but just that sheer, the effort that it takes to get on video and to export the video and upload the video, like that in and of itself is going to weed out people that just want to quickly press apply and put their resume on the job application. So that was really interesting. And I've seen that in some of my peers' hiring practices. So it's cool to see that kind of like come to life and figure out where they got that from. The final principle that I'm going to discuss from the book is Dan encourages all entrepreneurs to define their perfect week. And this is where you look into like when you work best. Do you work best in the mornings? Do you work best after lunch? Do you work best late at night? And when you don't work best. So what's the opposite end of that question as well? You get to determine, of course, like when your ideal time to have meetings is so that you can make your day as productive as possible without those like dreaded small gaps throughout your day that kill the productivity. I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. When you have a call from 11:30 to 12 and then you have another call at 12:15, like what in the world do I do for those 15 minutes? But it's just so just so crazy how quickly time can get away from me. And I know I'm not alone in that. I'm going to digress and kind of go off on a personal story again really quickly. But a while back, This was like before we had kids, so it had to have been, I think it was while I was teaching. So like 2016. I read this book called A Simplified Life by Emily Lay. And this book was about creating routines and habits in your life to simplify it. And three things about that book that I remember to this day. Those three things are, the first is that she said I should always wash the dishes in the sink at night so that when I wake up the next day, I can wake up to a clean kitchen slate. The second thing is that once I had kids, I needed to do one load of laundry completely, like wash, dry, and fold and put away every day so that I don't feel vastly overwhelmed with laundry mountains on the weekends. And the third, and this is the most applicable to this, is that every item in your home needs to have a home within your home. So, for example, I'm going to just use the kitchen because that's on my mind. Like every plate and every appliance and every utensil needs to have a place within your kitchen so that when you're cleaning up, you or whoever's helping you, spouse, kids, whoever, knows exactly where that item goes, where that item's home is. And that way you can completely clear the clutter and reset for whenever you need to use it again. So now that I'm a mom, I try to follow all of those rules, mostly the laundry. But again, in terms of this example, I'm talking about where everything has a home. So the concept of the perfect week allows me essentially to have a home for the time that I need to spend in each facet of my life. So if every part of my life has time devoted to it during that perfect week, my husband, my kids, my businesses, etc., then I can be sure that that time is protected and honored, and that is a beautiful thing. And I love that throughout the book, he uses different examples, both from his personal life and his professional life, because as entrepreneurs, our time bleeds over so much. Like we're not just a mom, we're not just a business owner, we're not just a wife. Like all of those things sort of touch each other because we don't always leave to go to work. And even when we do, like, are we really like not thinking about our business when we come home to our families? But I think if you have the time allotted, that you're going to promise yourself that you get time to focus only on your business, and that you have time to focus solely on your family, then you're able to be more present within those allotted amounts of times. So all of that to say, after reading this book, I've really been focusing internally to ask myself what I want for the future of my family and my business. Do I really want to go for it and build a larger team? Do I want to keep it to a smaller team with 3 to 5 contractors? Do I want it to just be me and an assistant that Dan tells me that I should hire? And how is all this going to affect my family? And will I still be able to make them a priority if/when I grow and scale? And honestly, this book gave me the hope that I needed, that showed me I could absolutely grow and scale while still holding adequate space for my family, especially as my kids, right now are younger, and we've been thinking about homeschooling. That thought has become like very serious, and to the point of like we're taking action to be able to homeschool our daughter when she starts kindergarten in the fall. So it's just been really great to have this book bring me that clarity. And if you're feeling like you're at the point where you want to hire someone, but you don't know where to start or how to start, this book is exactly what you need. It really breaks it down into small, manageable pieces that don't feel overwhelming. Because trust me, I felt overwhelmed as I was, hiring that social media intern back a couple of years ago. And it scared me to the point where I haven't approached hiring again. I've just decided to be sort of a solopreneur up until this point until I read this book. So if you're feeling like you're at a point where you want to hire someone but don't know where to start or how to start, this book is exactly what you need. It's really brought me, like I said, a lot of clarity in a season that feels very chaotic and like everything is kind of on my shoulders. And we weren't meant to operate on an entrepreneurial island. And this book has really helped me realize that after nearly 7 years of running a business, totally by myself, that it doesn't have to be that way. And this is how you can kind of cross that bridge and get off that island from being alone. But if you are interested in purchasing the Buy Back Your Time book, I have a link directly to it in the show notes. And one of the great things about Dan is that as you go through the book, you will see that there are a ton of free resources on his website. In fact, I have multiple of them printed out and folded up in my hard copy of the book. Yes, I'm old school. I go through with a highlighter and write notes in the margins. So go check out the book, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, and go ahead and capture all of his free resources that he has on his website, including the time and energy audit, like calendar/outline. He has one that you can just like plug and play, fill in, which is really helpful. So I'm going to say that that's all I got for today. So I'm signing off for next week. Thank you for helping me get season 3 off to a great start. But until next week, keep dreaming, keep creating, and remember, your brand is your story. Let's tell it together. As my son would say, did it! You just completed another episode of the Allie Ray Haney Show. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so you never miss an episode. Take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned in today's episode. Let's continue the conversation over in my private Facebook group, the Allie Ray Haney Show Insiders. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.